Hi grades. In this video I'm going to show you how to make your boxer shorts. And before we get started, you might see I've got a little helper over here, my little Frenchie Roxy. She's very nosy and likes to be involved in everything that's going on at home. Okay, to get started, you need to have your fabric that you've chosen to make your shorts out of. I've just got a light floral kind of fabric. It was cheap at Spotlight and I liked the pattern and the colours. You need to collect also your 2 pattern pieces. Okay, there should be 2 pieces that you collect from a plastic sleeve, and you need to make sure you collect the size that you're going to make. What you need to check first is that, first of all, I'm making a size medium, so I can see there's an M on there, and one should say front and one should say size medium back. Correct, so I've got a front and a back piece. That's what I need. I'm also going to need some pins before I can get started and some fabric scissors to cut out the pattern pieces. That's our first step. To get started, we actually need to fold our fabric in half. Now, to fold it in half accurately, we need to find what's called the selve edge. Okay, now the selve edge is like a sealed edge. So if you pick up your piece of fabric, you will see that there are some edges that are nice and neat, and if you look up really close you can see that there's some tiny little holes all the way along, and then if you look at the other edges, I can see this one's a little bit frayed where someone has actually cut it. It's not a sealed edge, it's where the person at Spotlight has actually cut the fabric. So you always have 2 sealed or selve edges. Alright, so I've found mine here, and that means the other one will be directly opposite on this side. So I need to fold one selve edge over to be touching the other selve edge. So I'm going to do that now and lay it out nice and flat so it's in half. And one other thing to remember is that you want the good side, alright, so the bright or the coloured or the nice print side together, so on the inside of the fold. Alright, so this is my brighter side, so I'm going to fold up and over this selve edge onto the other selve edge here. Just taking my time to get it nice and flat. Okay, that's ready to go. Now I'm going to lay out the pattern pieces in position ready to cut. Now there's one important piece of information on your pattern pieces, and that is a large arrow that you can sort of see from there to there. It's a bit hard to see because it's see-through. There we go, now you can see it. Alright, so that means that the arrow needs to be pointing in the same direction as your selve edges. Okay, so my selve edges are running this way, so my arrow also needs to run this way as well. I'm also just checking that I can read the writing on my pattern so that it's not upside down. So size medium. I'm going to place it quite close up to the top of my fabric so I haven't got any wastage up there. And then pulling it across close to the other edge, making sure my arrow running in the same direction. I now get my other piece and do the same thing again. Placing it close to the other pattern piece, so again there's not much waste in between. And pull it over to here, arrow, selve edge. Okay, I do have some spare fabric down the bottom, which is good. It's better to have a little bit spare than be short on your fabric. Now the last thing, if you have a print where you have characters or animals or something that need to be the right way up, okay, can I get you to double check with me at this point before you pin and cut out, or your teacher, that it is the right way, the pattern is the right way, so that you're not going to end up with upside down teddy bears or flamingos, you know, with legs going here, there and everywhere. Okay, next step, we need to pin around the edges so that we can cut this out. So the pattern is like a stencil, so it doesn't move, we use our pins. So I'm going to get a pin and go in through the pattern and through both layers of my fabric and back out again. Okay, so I've gone in and then come back out through all the layers, so it's holding those 3 layers together. So I'm going to go ahead and pin around the whole edge, and I'll show you when I'm done with both pieces. Okay, so I've finished pinning all the way around both pattern pieces. Here are my tips for pinning. Make sure that your pin goes in to the 3 layers of fabric and then comes back up again. All right, so you should see the little coloured or the silver bit of the pin as well as the pointy end coming back out the top. Also, don't pin too close to the edge of your pattern. Pin in about 1 centimetre so that as you're cutting, the pins aren't getting in your way. And my last tip is leave a few centimetres in between each pin. You don't have to have them right next to each other, but you don't want them too far apart either, so a few centimetres apart. So I'll just hold mine up to the camera so you can see what I mean. So I've got a pin here, right, you can see them going sort of across. All right, now that they're all pinned and secure, I'm going to go ahead and cut around this as if I'm cutting around a stencil. So using my fabric scissors, I want to cut as close as possible to the edge of the pattern without cutting the actual pattern itself, but definitely going through both layers of my fabric. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it out, and then I'll show you once I'm done. Okay, I've finished cutting out my 2 pieces. So I've now got a piece here and a piece here. I've still got the pins in and the pattern, but it's now time to take out the pins. And just a tip, make sure you put your pins back in your pin holder or the container that you're using so they don't end up everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and take the pins out. You don't need to be worried about remembering which is the front and which is the back, okay? Because if we have a look at the 2 pieces, all right, what we can see here on the crutch area or the curve is that this bit is the front, right? It has a much smaller curve here. Whereas if we look at this piece, this is the back, or the 2 backs, it's got a much larger curve. And the reason it has a larger curve is because it has to curve around your bum. All right, the back piece is bigger. So that's exactly why, bigger curve. And that's how we remember when we take the pattern off. There'll be no labels on your fabric. The larger curve is the back, smaller curve is the front. Okay, so time to take out pins. So I've unpinned and taken off the 2 pattern pieces and I've folded them up. So it's a good idea to fold them back up, put them back in the plastic sleeve so someone else can use them because they might be waiting to cut out their shorts. So we're going to put them aside. It's now time to actually start constructing and sewing our shorts, which is really exciting. So just to recap, we've got our back pieces here with the big curve, our front pieces here with the smaller curve. So to start off, I need to match up 1 front piece with 1 back piece. Okay, so I'm going to grab the top front piece here and the top back piece, and we're going to be lining up the short edge here underneath the curve. So we can see we've got a long, nice curve, and it's this bottom piece here that we're going to line up. So taking 1 front and 1 back, I'm going to put my other pieces aside so we don't get confused. And I'm now going to lay them on top of one another. Okay, so always good sides together. When we sew things inside out so that all the sewing is in the inside, and then we flip it through so we see the good side but not the sewing. All right, so I've got my good side up, good side down, so they're both touching each other on the inside, or good sides together. So the bit that we wanted to line up was the bit underneath the curve. All right, so lining up here, and then this piece is going to sit on top of it here. Should be roughly the same size. If they're not exactly, if it's a few millimeters off, don't panic, that's fine. Mine's a few millimeters off. It's just the way the pattern was. You also don't need to worry because you'll notice that this piece doesn't go all the way to the edge of this one. That's okay as well, because remembering the front is smaller than the back piece. All that needs to line up at this point is this one edge here. I'll shuffle it back so you can see this one edge. So what I've done is lined up to make sure that these are perfectly aligned, and I'm now going to pin them in place. So again, with our pinning skills, we want to make sure that fabric is lined up, and I'm going to go through in and out through both layers. And if your fabric tries to move, like mine is here, just flatten it out, make it do what you want it to do. In and out. You only need 3 or 4 pins in this small section because it's quite small. And out. Okay, so I've now got my inner leg, that's actually the inner leg, pinned. So you can see a few pins on there. So that's ready to sew. I'm going to do the same on the other 2 pieces now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one too. Okay, I've now got my 2 seams here, the straight edges underneath the curves, pinned and lined up ready to sew.